We're good to go.
We're on?
Yeah, we're
Yay.
on the internet.
We're
Ooh.
good.
Yeah, we're good to go.
I'm just trying to
go.
think. Okay, there we go. I got all the research that we did on John. It's right here. Got the
Nice.
documents.
I
And
see
you
it.
got those? You got those emailed to you?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
I know everything. I know what we're going to talk about.
That was weird when he was 7.
We're going to expose.
Fuck,
We're going to
man.
expose him.
No, that story's off the table.
That's why. Oh, that's why we invited you on. I don't know. We'll figure out something.
Those seagulls will never be the same.
Oh,
That's probably a true statement.
So wait, what did you do to the seagulls?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'll tell you after.
All right.
They eat McDonald's. I mean, how bad? How much worse can it get, right?
Mm.
Anyway, we're here with one of the strongest athletes currently in the world, and arguably one of the strongest powerlifters the world's ever seen. Even if that makes you uncomfortable, I think the numbers speak for themselves, and people can do the mathematical equation and kind of decide for themselves. No disrespect to our boy Ed Cohn, but the stuff that you're doing right now, man, it's on the level. People got to at least admit and recognize it's at least getting close to the level, or it's at least on the level of Ed Cohn.
Yeah, it's cool to finally start to see my name in that conversation. I think the 1,000 kilo at 90 kilogram body weight really kind of put me over the edge of like, okay, he's getting there. Like I definitely don't think I'm there yet. I'm not an Ed Cohen, but I think if I were to like retire now, I would be at least kind of one of the guys that like people who got into lifting now would look back and talk about.
I think the powerlifting and a lot of sports were just so different back then, and so like when Ed Cohn was competing, there was mainly like, especially in the beginning of Ed Cohn's career, he'd only go to like the IPF.
Mhm.
He would compete in like one particular federation, and actually there was like the USAPL used to be the fuck, I forget all these different acronyms. But it used to be the ADFPA, which is actually where I started in, which was a drug-free powerlifting federation. But even before that, there was just powerlifting,
Mhm.
and there was no drug-free. There's no drug tested. And then somewhere down the line, somebody said, "Hey, this is not really looking right. I'm tired of getting slaughtered, or I think this is unfair." And then they started to split the federations up. But anyway, the point is when Ed Cohn was competing, and when some people from the 70s, 80s, even kind of like early 90s were competing, there was less federations, and it was less confusing on who was the best.
Mhm.
Nowadays, especially like around the time that the U.S. what's the name of one of the main federations?
USPA, USAPL, WRPF.
I think the USPA, around the time that they started, because they were newer.
Yeah.
They broke off of another federation, and because they were newer, everything was a record, a state record, a national record. And so it took a while for some of these newer federations to be established. It took a while for the all-time world records being broken in some of those federations to really be legitimate, because they were new and there was new categories, so people were, breaking masters 40 to 44 record from California type of thing. And that was going on for a while until nowadays it's more established, and we're starting to see some really amazing lifts from a lot of lifters around the world. But I guess that's what makes the comparison so difficult, is that when you think back to some of those old school power lifters, they went to a couple big contests every year.
Mhm.
And that's where all the heavy hitters were going to be there. Like you knew that Bill Kazmaier and Ed Cohn were going to be at the same contest.
Yeah, I think we're getting back to that now, because like obviously there's the IPF, the USAPL, the drug tested side, but the untested side, we're getting a lot more of like money meets. So you're gonna get like the top guys, like I'm gonna show, if like the showdown, you're gonna have like myself, Chad Penson, Jamal Browner. Dan Bell's kind of retiring now, but he would have been at them too. So now like winning that meet actually carries some weight versus like, oh, I did a backyard meet and hit a really big number. I think it's just carries more weight to do it at like the showdown.
I think another big difference is people didn't used to really retire, because they would just like lift until they couldn't lift anymore. and also, some of these savage lifters of the past, they're like insurance salesmen, or they had, some other type of job. And lifters today, there's a lot of lifters that have jobs and families, but for the majority of what I was experiencing when I was competing is most of the individuals didn't have a typical 9-to-5 job, and most of them, if not almost all of them, it was very rare that they were married. It was very rare that they had children. Not that you can't do those things, but it just throws another wrinkle into it. But nowadays with like social media, I think somebody can build up, and then they can kind of take like, hey, I already did all this stuff. Like our boy Big Ray, like he could just kind of move on and like do other shit. And everyone's going to follow whatever the hell he does because he's so popular. He's lifted some crazy weights. Hopefully that guy doesn't need to have a real job.
Yeah, I mean, actually posted something about like I saw a condom on the ground at one of the factories I worked at, and a bunch of people were so like taken back by the fact that I actually have a 9-to-5 job. I could.
They're like, you work in a factory?
Yeah. So they're like industrial laundry plants, and I do the chemistry for them. Yeah. I'm a chemist by trade, and not quite like
Story's getting
Derek.
awfully peculiar.
Yes. But yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, like you actually work for a living? Like, yeah, I mean, I could live off of just sponsorships and like winnings from meets, but I think I would get bored with that, to be honest.
It makes sense though. It's
Yeah.
like that looks like a Hydra logo on your hat. Remember what Captain America? What happened to him on Hydra? I see
Super
it.
serum.
I see what's going on here. He's a chemist. Hydra.
How'd you get into chemistry? Did you like you have like a superhero story? Did you like fall into like some fucking plasma or something?
No, it's actually a super nerdy story. I got into chemistry because I was in an AP Chem class in high school, and our Science Olympiad team needed someone from the chemistry.
Science Olympia
What?
team.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, like I'll do it. It'll look good on my resume. And then I ended up taking like, there's like a state competition. I took 4th in it, and I was like, oh, I'm good at chemistry. Like I'll stick with this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has that kind of stuff just always clicked well for you? And is it hereditary in some way, you think?
I don't know if I'd say like it has like clicked very well. Like compared to my siblings, I have a sister and a brother. We kind of joke that I'm the blue collar, my brother's like the white collar. Like he did really well with like reading, literature, geography, kind of stuff like that, whereas I did a lot more of like science and math. And then my sister was kind of like a balance between the two.
Before we continue down that route, I want to know, because some people are probably looking up the numbers. When we were talking about Ed Cohn, right, the GOAT, and yourself, right, you've probably thought about what would be the numbers needed to potentially put you over. What is, do you have that goal? Is there a goal there? Is there some numbers that you need to be able to potentially?
It's tough because I think it's kind of like a conversation of like LeBron versus Michael Jordan, where like there's nothing like LeBron can do that you wouldn't still have a very large group of people saying like, oh, Michael Jordan is better. So I think like no matter what, I'll never be able to like surpass Ed Cohen, but I think there's like numbers I can hit to like put me in the conversation. I think like we talked about like a 800 squat, 600 bench, 900 deadlift at 90 would be a really big one.
How close are you to that?
What is that? That's
13 more pounds on your deadlift.
Yeah. So I'm close on bench and deadlift, but squats got a ways to go.
Might take a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ed Cohn's done some ridiculous stuff in the gym. Have you, I'm sure you've seen some of the training footage. Have you ever just thought of like, I don't know, maybe just during this training cycle, let me just go for some of these lifts, or you don't want to get too outside of what you normally focus on?
I mean, I've kind of played around with like some stiff bar deadlifts to kind of emulate that, but I don't look at it as like individual lifts as like, or gym lifts and think I want to hit those. Maybe when I get up to like 220 and I'm more like in his weight class.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's another thing to think about is he was heavier and shorter. That little motherfucker.
I don't think I could ever match like his squat numbers.
Yeah,
So,
he was one of a kind. But you see like really weird, unique stuff from that guy. Like his arms are really long,
Mm-hmm.
and so people were like, "Oh, Ed never really benched that much." But some of the competitions that he did, where he broke all-time world records in total, the only thing he wore was a squat suit and knee wraps. He didn't wear a bench shirt. He didn't wear anything on the deadlift, and he still went out and like murdered everybody. And I think that people forget. I believe his best bench press, like at least in training, was like a 585 bench press. There's video footage of him benching 555 for a double with a close grip. But I think that you have lifted more than that. I'm not sure about your competition bench, where that's been.
My best gym bench is 584, and then I tried to touch and go 600, and it was not close.
It was a no-go.
It was no go. But I have a bet going with, if you know, Pull My Beard on Instagram.
Yeah.
Ty. We have a bet.
he's fun.
First one, yeah, he's a really fun guy. If you want to laugh, go to his
Go
Instagram.
to his page, please.
But or if you're questioning your sexuality, maybe.
Still, yes.
So you,
But we have a bet going that
mine is always in question.
first one to hit 600, the loser has to get their nipple pierced. So
Oh,
hope,
wow.
yeah,
You better hurry, bro. 'Cause
I know he's getting close. I'm a little nervous.
Damn. So you mentioned something in the gym that and maybe I haven't asked this question enough, but I think I have. And, I owned a magazine company called Power Magazine for years where I interviewed the top powerlifters every single month for years on end. Rubbed elbows with many all-time world record holders, and they're all a little bit different. But I have not heard one of them say what you said to me in the gym today, and I think it's really interesting. I said, "How often do you miss a lift?" And I sat back and I was like, he's going to say what I think he's going to say. He's going to say, "I never miss a lift because I lift with perfect form. It's all about technique, bro." And the technique police are not in your training program. You don't mind missing a lift here or there.
Yeah, I'll usually miss, like during a prep, I hit like a single on squat, bench, deadlift every week, and I typically end up missing one on each of the lift during, maybe not squat so much, more so bench and deadlift, but I usually miss one during a prep. It's just, usually I go in with a number in my mind, and for the most part, I can kind of guess right about like how it's going to feel that day, but sometimes I get too into that number, and I know I'm off mentally that day, but still don't want to be a bitch.
I think it says some interesting things about your personality. Number one, you're not afraid to go for it, which is really cool. Do you know in advance that you're going to go that heavy or no?
Usually. So I write out like a training plan for 12 weeks. Like when I do, I start with like what I want to hit for that meet.
I just picture it and it's super simple. It just says like deadlift and it says heavy. And then next week it says heavier and then heavier the next week.
Well, it's funny because like all I write out actually is like the singles, and then I kind of like wing it on the rep days. I kind of have like a general idea, like, oh, I want to do like a 3x8 for like 4 weeks. And
You're
like
frustrating so many people. There's so many people
Yeah,
right now that
seriously.
started out with a pen and they just threw it across the room. They're like, fuck, man, I don't. Guys winging shit.
Yeah, but like I know pretty well at this point. Like I've been training since I was 10. I know how much I'm gonna like put on from like train cycle to train cycle, so I can kind of have an idea of like, all right, this is what I want to hit at this meet. I'll probably be able to do it. This is what I need to hit like 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out to kind of like.
It's just so
Ramp up.
fascinating too, because you're a chemist but also you're super simple in the sense that you're like, when you said put on, you mentioned to me in the gym that you were talking about putting on your own body weight, but probably just in your head, you're like, oh, if I gain like 4 to 6 pounds, I'm going to be exponentially a little heavier. And you're kind of expecting that outcome to come as you're going through your training prep. As you're lifting heavier and heavier weights, your body's going to respond to it more. You're probably eating more food and you're getting a little bigger.
Yeah, usually it's more so like water weight from getting on like Anadrol.
Yeah.
let's not. We'll go down that path, but this is really fucking cool because number one, Mark mentioned that it is something interesting that like you might miss a few lifts during a training cycle. One thing that's odd is like when people miss lifts, it gets in their head. And they're in their next training sessions, so maybe they're like just not feeling it because they missed that lift. Do you tend to just like be like, okay, that was a mistake, forget it, and go on to the next one? And then also, in terms of how you're setting things up right now, how do you feel that people sometimes overcomplicate their training?
So the first point, I guess I'll kind of get into my head if I'm like feeling good that day and I'm like confident and I still miss it, then it'll kind of like weigh on me. But I'm pretty good then adjusting my training plan to how like that day went.
Yeah.
Like when I write out the plan, those singles, it's kind of like a rough estimate. And then if sometimes I get a little bit ahead of schedule, like I'll be like, oh, I have to hit like 550 bench today, but I hit 550 and it moved crazy well. So I'm like, okay, I'll go 563. And then like I'll adjust everything else up 5 kilos the rest of the prep. Or the opposite, where I'll be like, ooh, like last warm up at like 500 felt a little rough. Maybe I'll only go 540. And then I pull back a little bit. But like if I go into it being like, all right, I'm gonna hit like 800 on deadlift for like a set of 3, and I'm feeling really good today, like I'm gonna kill this, and then like 800's glued to the floor, then I'm a little bit like, oh, like what's going on?
Yeah.
And then other times if I'm kind of like, all right, I'm supposed to hit 800 for 3, but I'm pretty drained from last workout. I didn't sleep that well. I didn't eat that well. And then like 800's good. I'll kind of be like, I can chalk that up to like no sleep and stuff like that.
How do you salvage these days? Like, how, like something shitty's happening, or let's say you mentioned that oftentimes after your last warm up, you'll take a pretty big jump. So maybe you have, I don't know, 7 plates on there and it's 700 something pounds if you're using kilos or something. And you just go right from that right into your working set of 815 pounds or something. Or I'm sorry, you're pulling that last warm up and you're like, fuck man, that's not moving well. Do you just abandon the plan a little bit, or do you still go for it? How do you kind of moderate that?
It kind of depends. Like, honestly, like from the social media side, I'll be like, if like the last warm up felt a little rough, I'll maybe take like a smaller jump to hit something where I can like, I can video this, like I can post it. But
gives you confidence.
Yeah. But if I'm feeling good, didn't like, or if I like take the big jump, miss the top set, sometimes I'll hit my like drop downs. Other times I'll just kind of be like, all right, I'm feeling very drained today. Like I'm just gonna like hang out and just talk with friends, but not really.
Andrew, I interrupted you there.
No, you kind of took the wind out my sails. I was gonna ask, like, when you do miss a lift, like what do you learn from it? Like what's the main thing that you get out of it? Whereas most people, like Nsima said, they just get all frustrated and kind of like, I don't know, they whine in the corner of the gym all by themselves. But for you, when you do miss, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. So like, what do you think you take out of it the most?
I don't know if I like learn too much out of it now because I've just been doing it for so long. So like, I feel like I don't know. It's kind of tough. It's just like maybe just it's usually more so something to do with like my recovery that I'll be like, oh, I messed that up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think over the years that's you've just answered it though. You just kind of don't even take anything out of it, and I think that's fucking huge.
You just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Think less.
But you're, as you're sitting there, we've had many people on the show who are built. We've had great bodybuilders and great people, but don't you kind of think that he just looks different? I mean, do you see how like, I mean, he I mean, I don't mean to like embarrass you, but you're so thick and so like well put together that it's overkill. But you're fucking jacked beyond belief.
But this is the thing. Like when I look at him, okay, so when I look at you, it's like you're very thick, but nothing is like out of proportion. Like some guys, like they're coming and their backs are like here and like their legs, okay, right? They look weirdly action figure-y.
A weird physique and they're like they don't have good posture and stuff.
Yeah,
he look aesthetic.
He looks like he can walk normally, and he looks like normally just built thick, right? But everything's there. It's nothing's out of
This
proportion.
is great. We're totally embarrassing.
Yeah. I've smoked,
booty's kicking too, by the
so-
way.
Well-
Did you see the booty he's walking around with over here?
Can you turn it real quick,
Those-
John?
That's America's ass.
That's America's ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are really well proportioned. Do you work on accessories a lot, I assume, or not?
No, not really.
Oh wow, you're killing a lot of people.
Yeah, like
you're making people angry, John.
I joke with my friends like I was like, if I hit like I'll hit my biannual set of curls every year just to get the biceps.
Fuck.
All right.
Let's just take a moment of silence on the show here for a second and memorialize all the people that just died from that comment.
For like my biceps, I get enough stimulus just from like doing like back workouts.
Dude.
Yeah. Like I don't hit any isolation stuff.
I mean, as I'm looking at you, to embarrass you further, you're very like 3D. Like there's a front delt going on that's very clear. There's a fucking bicep that's slapped together right there, and a tricep that's slapped together. And then he's got like crazy like rear delt and back and lats and chest, and it's just fucking, it's awesome. And what I think is really cool about it is, I don't think there's been like a deliberate concentration on like, oh, I'm going to do this isolation exercise for my shoulder. I'm going to do this movement for my rear delts. Like you're not sitting there hours on end pulling a band apart probably, or doing, not that you don't do any of those exercises, and it's not that you haven't done those in the past, but probably just the staticness of holding the position for a bench press 3 times a week, handling heavy squats, handling heavy deadlifts. A lot of these things are probably the things that made you, so you didn't even necessarily have to concentrate and say, I'm going to get super jacked. You just concentrated probably more so, I don't want to put words in your mouth, probably more so on, I'm just going to figure out a way to get really fucking strong. Is that kind of how it unpacked for you?
Yeah, for sure. So like, I think a lot of people start with the training of like, I want to be like jacked, I want to be like more of a bodybuilder. I always had the focus of wanting to be the strongest. So I never really did like, oh, I'm going to do like a chest day or a leg day. It was always like, I'm going to do a bench day or a squat day. And it was kind of like, what's going to get me a stronger squat or stronger bench?
Even when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Like I was more interested in like, what could I bench versus like wanting to look jacked.
All right. You're from, I think you mentioned you're from Wisconsin.
Yes.
And that's where your family is from. And did you grow up there till you're teenager or something like that? Or
I lived there until last year.
Oh, yeah. And you started lifting when you're 10. How did lifting at 10 is that's early. How did that happen?
I asked for a weight set for my 10th birthday, and then I used my allowance to buy like a little multi bench station, and basically would go and hit like 50 pounds for 30 reps every morning before going to
just like bench the bar or something like that.
It was 50. It was like a 20-pound bar with, and then do like a set of 30, and then go and feed the calves.
Any idea like where the idea came from?
Actually, watching like World's Strongest Man, like Mariusz Pudzianowski.
Was anyone concerned? Were your parents like, I don't, that's great that you want to exercise, but this is a little bit weird.
They never told me about it.
Yeah.
They probably were, but I mean, it worked out well. So
he mentioned something there. He mentioned bench 50 pounds for 30 reps and then go and feed the calves. I think we just kind of skipped over that. So it was a farm.
Yeah, dairy farm.
Oh, I thought he meant like he's like doing like donkey calf races.
No. Feed the calves.
All right. So like we were kind of talking about this before the podcast, but working on a farm, that probably had a big change in terms of your just development, right? Physically?
I think so. I think like if you've ever like shook hands with a farmer or my school was like, we had a pretty good wrestling team. But if you like wrestled like the smaller schools with like that had the farm kids, just something about them, like they didn't look imposing, but they could just they knew how to use their bodies so much better than like a normal high schooler.
You do all the kind of typical farm stuff like bale hay and things like that?
We did. We kind of got away from that a little bit when I got towards like high school because my grandpa passed away. So then my dad kind of outsourced a lot of the actual field work. And then we just
like, come on, Dad, I'm trying to get jacked here. Can we still have a farm?
Yeah, so we still, and then we got into more like big bales, which are you use like a tractor to move them versus like the smaller bales that you're probably used to seeing.
What are some of those disciplines that maybe you saw from your grandfather or your dad, or even just things that you had to implement yourself to be part of this like working farm?
I think it's kind of the discipline of like you just have to get the job done. Like it's gonna suck. Like you're literally standing in like cow shit, but you have to like get the cows fed no matter what.
And you learned that like at a really young age?
Yeah, I mean, I started doing like chores when I was 3.
Hmm. And I'd imagine, like, because you're starting at such a young age, you have days where you're crying and upset, and somebody's probably like, "Hey, that doesn't really, your emotions here don't matter." You're like milking cows, and you have chickens and things like that, getting eggs. Like, I don't know.
We,
I don't
we
know
used to
what
have cows, yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, your emotions don't matter to the cows really. It's
Right.
like they still need to get fed. So
And is this a farm where you guys were selling product as well, or is it mainly for the family, or what? How
yeah,
does it
so
work out?
like we had like it was mostly just dairy. So like
Mhm.
milk, like we'd fill up the bulk tank of milk every day, and then the milkman would come and pump it into his truck
Oh,
and
okay.
drive it away.
Yeah, so it was like a thing that wasn't only for the family, but it was also some income as well.
Yeah, so we milked 70 cows.
Yeah, see, so I would imagine like that's a different thing than just having like a cow where you occasionally are just getting milk for the family
Yeah.
versus. What did you learn about like that process? Because like I don't even know what the hell goes on. Like, so you milk the cow, and then like is the milk good right then, or does it go through? It's got to go through like a lot of processing, or what happens
So it
from
goes
there?
through like a filter system, takes out a lot of like the um solid particles, and then goes into your bulk tank, and then it goes into like a um then it goes to like the factory to get processed.
Did you have access to like raw milk and things
Yeah.
like that for yourself, like for your family? Because I mean that might be part of the reason, Nsima over here growing up on goat meat and goat milk and a lot of nutritious things,
Mhm.
really. But for yourself, maybe that was a little bit of a contributing factors. Did you guys have like raw milk and things of that nature?
Yeah, we didn't apparently we used to drink the raw milk a lot, but I think when I was younger, it was either like myself or my brother. When we were younger, we got like sick, and the doctor was like, "Oh, it could be the raw, like
Right,
some of
right.
the stuff in the raw milk." So we started doing buying like store milk, but at the same time, you'd still like you're like thirsty in the barn, and you just drink drink a glass out of the bulk tank.
That's great.
When did powerlifting come into the picture for you? Like when did you-
So
11.
no, I didn't start till I was 20.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so I did my first meet when I was 20. It was in college, and when you're just like in the gym, you kind of gravitate towards like the strong people, or
Yeah.
like you're like, oh, you're strong, I'm strong, let's train together. My training partner in college, he competed in high school, and then he convinced me to do a meet with him.
Okay. And let me ask you this too. In I guess in high school, were you like a football player? Were you some type of sport player along
Yeah.
with lifting?
Football and wrestling.
Football and wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means you knew how to move really fucking well as a wrestler, and then you moved into
I
power.
was like okay as a wrestler. I didn't start till I was a freshman.
Yeah.
And then by then you're wrestling against kids that have been doing it since they're like 6, and their
Mhm.
dads are kind of a little hyper trying to live through their kid.
Yeah.
And like I could out muscle kids, but I didn't have the best technique,
Mm-hmm.
and I would get gassed out by like the second period.
Yeah.
And if I made it to like the third period, it's like, oh, I'm gonna let him pin me because I am tired. I want to go home.
Who were some of the better powerlifters when you first got in? Like who? Like do you recall seeing like someone like an Ed Cohn, or seeing video or hearing something about maybe like Jesse Norris or somebody like that,
Mhm.
where you're like, okay, that guy's a little bit similar to me in terms of body weight, but yet he's doing these crazy weights. I wonder if I could do that.
Yeah, actually, so my second meet was actually the first time I met you was at Raw Unity 7.
Mm.
And that was when Animal sent like basically like their whole lineup of powerlifters. Was like Brandon Lilly, Dan Green was like the guy at the
That was a
time.
wild ass meet.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Jesse Norris was there. Let's see who
I
else.
think Milanachev, right?
Milanchev was there. Yeah, I met him. That was pretty cool. He was asked him for a picture, but he was like getting ready to squat. I was like, I was
Maybe
like,
not a great time.
or not getting ready. He just like kind of finished squatting, and like he took a lot of pictures. I was like, okay, like I understand if you say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember how many people he had like holding him down to get his knee wraps on and shit?
I always tell that story about like I was like there was like 2 guys holding him down, one guy holding each of them down.
Yeah.
Someone
You know?
holding someone holding
It
his
was an
leg.
event.
There was like one guy that like pulled it around, and then another guy that like pulled the knee wrap even more. And I was like, Jesus.
And Andre's just sitting there like in Russian saying like more and with this straight face, and you're like, how the fuck are they like, doesn't that kill?
Yeah, like I've only done wraps a couple times, and I usually did like self wrapping, and I was like, I'm getting it pretty tight. And then I had someone wrap me one time, and I was like, oh, okay, this like I didn't like it because it was just it felt like I couldn't like actually contract my muscles.
You can't feel anything. It feels like
Yeah.
your toes are gonna explode.
Yeah, I was like, I just didn't have confidence I was like gonna come up with the weight.
Wow. In that meet, that second, you said that was going to be your second meet?
Mm-hmm.
But like, how strong are you? I'm just curious, like how, when you got into powerlifting, how fast you saw strength progress.
Yeah, so my first meet, that was in 2013, I think June. It was a USAPL meet. I told 1482. And that was kind of the first time I was like, I won best lifter at this local meet. But then I compared my number to like nationals for USAPL.
Mhm.
It was like one of the first couple years of raw nationals. If I had hit that total, I would have taken like second or third at raw national.
Nats?
Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't like really big at the time.
Yeah.
But
So
that was kind of
I want to point out real quickly though that 1,400 pounds is actually very strong. First of all, for a new lifter, a drug tested athlete, and I mean you're squatting like sounds like mid fours almost, right? And probably deadlifting mid fours and then benching like 3.
I hit a 540 squat, 330 bench, and a 611 deadlift.
Yeah, that's incredibly strong coming out of the
Mhm.
gate. And then what was the weight class?
181.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
I mean, it's very clear that you're already pretty talented at it. When you first started going to, you mentioned going to a commercial gym. You mentioned having weights at your house. When did you start going to a commercial gym? And did you start to recognize like, oh, I'm a little different, or I'm a little ahead?
So actually, I didn't go too much to a commercial gym. It was more so just my high school's gym.
Oh, I see.
And then like the college gym. I kind of joked because 2 years ago, I think I got my first gym membership.
Hmm.
Because I always had like
That's great.
Yeah. Because I always had like either the high school, college gym, or I started at like Madtown Fitness in Madison, which was a powerlifting gym, and I think I paid for like a month membership, and then after that month, I became friends with the gym owner, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna be like a special lifter, like you could be like our sponsored athlete."
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. How did your other meets start progressing?
Oh,
When did
and
things
then,
start getting serious?
Yeah. So then the Raw Unity, that was the second meet. That was in February the next year, and I totaled 1620 at that one, I think.
Damn.
Get over here, Jessica Smith, and give us a big old fat hug. Oh, Jessica has been away. She went to prison a while back.
Fresh
Sexual
out of
harassment charges.
Fresh out of the pen.
Great to see you.
Long time no see, John.
All right, well, now that we got that over with, hopefully we don't have to fucking talk to her again. Roasted. All right, 1,600 something pounds. Then what happens?
I think the next one was UPA, and that was the first time I broke the drug tested 181 record of like 1705, I want to say. That was like so at the time it was like myself, Brett Gibbs, and then like Jamie Lewis was the untested guy that had the record. I think like 1710 or something like that. And that's when like kind of the discussion of like, oh, who's better, John or Brett? And that's kind of when I set out to go compete against him at Worlds.
How'd that go?
That went well. I won nationals that year, and then ended up going 9 for 9 at Worlds the following year. Hit 813 kilograms total. I don't know what that is in pounds off the top of my head.
A lot.
Yeah. And that was pretty cool because it was I was also a junior at the time, and I remember like because I won nationals, and they're like, oh, you can pick either open or junior world team, and so, like one of the kids next to me was like, well, which one are you gonna do? I'm like, I'm obviously gonna go open because I want to go against Brett Gibbs, and he's like, well, you could win the junior. I'm like, I can win the open, man.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Yeah.
So okay. Now the numbers that you had then before you went on to the USPA, are those numbers that you had before you left? Are they still like, has someone beaten those numbers yet?
For the 1705?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, before you made that transition, what made you want to move in that direction? Because it seems like you still had a lot that you could have continued to gain there.
Oh, you mean going from
IPF to USPA.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. I was confused. Yeah, so
AKA getting on some drugs.
yeah, I actually didn't get on drugs for a full year after leaving the IPF. But so even like back when I hit the 1620, it was kind of always like I want to be like I don't want to be like just the best IPF USPA lifter. I want to be like the best overall. And I saw like conquering the IPF as just like one of the stepping stones to that. And after that, like I had a lot of like family members like, oh, you won worlds. Like, what are you going to do now? And I was kind of like, well, like, do I go again? And originally that was kind of the plan.
Yeah.
And then the first big kern with the $40,000 payout got announced. And I was like, that's an easy reason to switch. Like, I ended up taking second at that meet. And I was actually still natty at the time. So that was like,
damn.
Yeah. It was a $10,000 payout for second place. And
what did you lift there? How much, like, what are you bench and squat and deadlift? And
so that was with wraps.
Natty, by the way, means like he's on a little bit of D-ball. just a couple pills, you know.
No, it was totally natty.
Come on, bro.
I believe you. I believe you.
It's a farm boy strength.
Yeah,
you
really
can't question it.
What did I total that one? I tied Ben Pollock.
He's fucking strong.
He is very strong.
But did the USAPL give you shit for doing the kern, even though like you didn't take anything? Like,
that was why I was gonna stay natty, because my plan was I was like, okay, I'll alternate like every other year because it's a 1-year ban for competing outside. So I was like, okay, I can like do Worlds in 2016, do the kern in 2017, then go back to Worlds in 2018. But when I signed up, they're like, oh, like you won't be able to compete in 2017 or 2018 Worlds. I'm like, why? That's like my ban will be up by the time 2018 Worlds comes around. But they said, because the meet is in like April of 2017, so my ban should be up in like April of 2018. But they make the world team decisions in like January of 2018, so they're like, oh, you're still banned at this time, so we won't select you for the world team. I think it was just there wasn't a rule against it. They were just kind of being dicks about it.
That's so awesome. You get banned for like hanging out with people that take shit.
I know.
You're off the team.
They could still drug test. Like they could still off-season drug test you to make sure. I just think that's so kind of ridiculous. It's because it seems like they're trying to fucking own an athlete.
Yeah, I remember I asked them one time on the like USAPL group page. I'm like, hey, like, what's the point of this rule? Like, why can't I compete in USPA and then come back to USAPL? And they're like, well, like McDonald's doesn't want you eating at Burger King. I'm like, well, I don't get banned from McDonald's for eating at Burger King.
Right. I think it might even be like a WADA rule, not necessarily a USAPL rule, but they really like to stick to their guns on it. They, as an organization, they could just be like, we don't really care if you compete in other spots, but for some reason they do. It never made a whole lot of sense to me. What did your training look like at that time? Because nowadays you bench squat and deadlift, and your ways of improving bench squat and deadlift are through bench squatting and deadlifting. You do assistance exercises, but you said like sometimes you don't have even a ton of steam to do them, and you're just kind of getting through them. I'm sure they're still a big part of what you do, but they seem to represent less. But to a newer lifter, that's kind of wondering how you built yourself up. How did you build yourself up in the beginning?
So even then, I'd been training for probably like 12 or 14 years, something in that range. So I would say like those like first 5 years, I was doing a lot more like, it was still like strength based, but it was a little bit more like volume bodybuilding, kind of like push pull type splits.
Where 5 years goes right with Andrei Milanichev.
Yeah. And then like after that, it kind of became more similar to just like in between like that, the 5 year, and now it kind of just tapered a little bit more towards just hitting the main lifts. So even like 4 years ago, when I was still natural, I was still training pretty similar to what I do now.
At any point, did you start to see like where was, or like maybe now, but where was a big slowdown in strength for you? Because like it's not perfectly linear, but you're still
waiting for that.
Yeah, are you just?
Definitely. I've had like periods where it's like slowed down, but I've always kind of like changed something up to, or maybe not necessarily change something up, but like just take like one step back to take like 2 steps forward.
What does that kind of look like?
I guess kind of getting like, if I get like too into my head about a certain goal number,
Mhm.
I might like keep just pushing it too much, and I'll like, I think like a lot of lifters are like, oh, I want to hit like a 500-pound bench or something like that, and then they get so into their head about getting that 500-pound bench that like every like 3 meets in a row they'll go like a 440 opener, 470 second, and then they'll go for 500 and miss it like every single time. And I think like one thing I did was I was like, okay, like maybe I won't get 500-pound bench at this meet. Like maybe just go for 490 and then 496 the next one, then 500. And that like, I would say, I think like 2017 was kind of when like that clicked for me. And since then I've been very consistent with hitting like PRs on my meets.
What was the decision to take performance enhancing drugs, and were you like worried about it, nervous about it, or has it been in your horizon for a long time?
So I was kind of knew I would like eventually get on them. Just because, like I said, I always wanted to be the best. I didn't want to be just the best natty lifter. I wanted to be just the best overall, and I knew to do that I needed to get on drugs. And actually, I started on SARMs. That's how I actually like found Andrew, because he was doing the Sarmageddon
Was
series. Yeah, like right
Jesus
around that time.
Christ, Andrew,
Hey,
look at the impact he's
I
had
know.
on our youth.
I started right before him, so maybe I influenced him.
could have been.
So I did that for about a year, and then decided to like, my first cycle was literally just, I did 12 weeks. I did the first 4 weeks were 150 test, and the next 4 were 200 tests.
I can hear all the pens
And
going right now.
And then the last 4 weeks going into the meet, I went up to 250 milligrams a test, and that was the whole cycle. And that was when I hit the 2K at 181.
You were like, damn, this shit works.
Did you see a really big bump?
Maybe not so much from that one. So what I get from drugs more so is just going from like 181 to 198 weight class. Like I just noticed that I was able to put on the weight so much more clean versus like if I just tried to bulk
That's
out
actually a really interesting thing, because I wonder if you went like some sort of way of testing gaining body weight versus taking performance enhancing drugs. Like I don't know what the results are of that one study that everyone always brings up where people took testosterone, I think, for like 6 weeks, and they increased their bench without working out in comparison to a group that was natural, that was actually training. But I wonder if the group gained body weight, because I think that is a huge responsibility, or is what is hugely responsible for some of the strength gains, but obviously not forever. And for you have to stay in a particular weight class.
Yeah, I think for powerlifting, I think most of the strength, like I think most of what you gain from taking like steroids or performance enhancers is just having more muscle, and it also makes the weight cut a lot easier too, I think. Like I feel like
yeah, that's actually very true, because you have more muscle, and it's easier to kind of deplete your glycogen stores, lose water weight. It's easy to manipulate 15, 20 pounds when you have a large amount of muscle mass on you. Whereas like just trying to just strictly lose fat would be very difficult, and also really awkward with trying to gain the weight back.
Yep.
If you had to lose 15, 20 pounds and it was mainly water weight, you can normally put it back on pretty well and lift pretty well.
Yeah, and I think the post weigh-in recovery is a lot more efficient as well.
An interesting thing that I'm noticing about you also, because we talked about the way that you look, but also like you're not breathing in a like in a crazy way. Because when you see a lot of guys that are running quite a bit of stuff, when they speak or they get on a mic, they're like like you seem to have control over that. You seem to be like you're healthy. You can tell you're healthy. So how did you make sure to do that in a way where it doesn't seem that your blood pressure's compromised, it doesn't seem that you're breathing heavy? How are you doing that?
Well, I run like very low, so like I'm kind of off cycle right now.
Okay.
So normally I run a pretty low dose. I run a pretty low dose regardless.
I love this kind of talk. I'm kind of off cycle right now.
Yeah. So like,
which means you're not off cycle.
I'm on 100 milligrams test a week right now.
Right.
Okay.
So because normally when I finish a meet, I'll come off completely, but between the showdown and my next meet was the hybrid showdown.
Mhm.
It was 16 weeks, and I usually do like a 12-week cycle. So I was like, I don't want to like come completely off for 4 weeks and then come back on. So I was like, I'll just do like 100 milligrams test. And then even like at the peak, I do like a 12-week cycle. I'll start like 200 milligrams test and 50 anavar a day. And then at 6 weeks, I'll switch to 50 anadrol and bump it up to 250 test.
You were mentioning also, like when we were talking in the gym, how like when you get up to the 220, you feel like your face is...
Once I get up to 220, then like it feels like, ooh, I'm getting a little bit like, it feels unhealthy for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Like maybe if I put it on slower, I could do that. But that's why when everyone's like, oh, you should move up to 220 now, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I still have stuff to do at 90 kilos, but it's just I feel like I'd lose a little bit of my like athleticism and be able to move as well.
So do you want to like, I'm just curious about like your progression through time. Are you trying to do some stuff at this weight class, and then later on when you feel like, I don't know what conquering this weight class looks like for you, but then are you going to move up and try to conquer another weight class, or you just see how things go?
Like I see myself as I don't like coming down in weight, or like I feel like I can never go back to 181 at this point. Like now that I'm a 90 kilo, I can only go up. And so I want to do everything here at 90 kilos before I move up to the 100 kilo weight class.
Who has the 100 kilo weight class record?
I think Yuri Belkin does.
And then what about 242?
Jamal Browner.
And you have surpassed both of their totals already in the 181 class?
198.
In the 198 class.
Yeah.
I wonder why that those records don't roll over, since it's a disadvantage to be less weight than it is to be more weight.
I do agree with that. I think it's like it should be the under 100 kilo class, not the like 90.1 to
right.
kilo.
Anyone under that weight that has done more weight total wise should have the record.
I agree.
So these are fake records these motherfuckers have.
I mean, in faurness, Jamal he took a big jump for his third deadlift.
These guys are fucking savages. So you want to move up in these weight classes, and probably it would probably make for great competition, because those guys will probably want to level up as well.
Yeah, I think like I definitely want to go head to head with Yuri at some point, but he's much more like, a lot of people like to compare us, and I just like to say like he's a much better lifter in wraps than me, and I think I'm better in sleeves.
You don't have some of the wrap records, or you do have some of those as well?
So technically I have the wrap record for 198 as well. I think Chad had it at 90 or 997.5, and then I just barely etched it out. Does it mean much to you to like have those records? And like it does seem like the 1,000 kilo thing was something for you. When you hit an 887 pound deadlift at the end of a powerlifting meet, you went through your squat, you went through your bench, you figured out the number, and I think you were chasing that 1,000 kilos for a while. Were you super excited? Did you cry? Did you like fucking run around like you won a bunch of money or something? Or like, what did it feel like? Did it mean much? Yeah, that one was really exciting, because so I went into the meet feeling pretty confident, and I planned out my attempts, and I was like, okay, I can still miss one lift and hit the 1,000 kilos. I was like, all right, if perfect day, I would hit like 10, 12.5. But obviously missed the third squat, but I injured myself on that one. I kind of tore both quads, and at that point I was very like down. I was like, if you listen to like the Massonomics podcast, like, yeah, we had the booth right next to where John was sitting. He was not having a good time. That is accurate. I was like, I don't think the 1,000 kilos is here. was very heartbroken. I was like, damn, I really thought this was the one. Because I was like, I don't think I can leg drive as much on bench, and I don't know how deadlifts are gonna go. And but after like warming up on bench, I'm like, God, my upper body feels really strong, but I can't really leg drive. So like the first 2 attempts, I didn't push it that hard, or I didn't like. It was basically like 90% upper body, maybe like a little bit of leg drive.
Yeah.
And then the third bench, I was like, like fuck it, like fuck my legs, fuck your elbow, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
You could have wore a slingshot under your singlet.
that is the method now. Is that the meta? But yeah, so hit the third bench, and then at that point I kind of like did the math. I'm like, okay, this is the number I need to hit to hit the 1,000 kilos. And deadlift warming up, I was like, all right, it hurts to move, but the actual lift isn't making the legs worse. So like it could be there actually, and ended up being there. So it was kind of like going from that super low to that super high
With 2 torn quads.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah.
Why am I like the only one who seems surprised about this? That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess like in the end, it didn't affect my strength for bench, and it maybe like 2.5 kilos on bench. I went in thinking like 584 was going to be my third attempt.
How bad was it in the succeeding days? You know, like getting upstairs and walking and stuff, where your legs really, really jacked up, or was just like kind of a tweak or a pull in the competition?
So the first week after was pretty. It was uncomfortable. Like I could move, but it was just like I had to work on the Monday after I got back, and I was just like, I'm gonna kind of do computer work this whole day. Like I'm not gonna move. And then, even still, like the left or the right one, on squats isn't feeling 100%
currently.
Yeah, I'll see how I was gonna squat after this, and I'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Damn. Who's somebody that you would really like to lift like with? Because you kind of mentioned to me earlier that you don't really have. A lot of times when you work out with people, but you mentioned that a lot of times you're kind of doing your own thing. Are there some people out there like a Larry Wheels or a Michael Hearn or bodybuilder, powerlifter, strongman person where you'd like, man, I just love to just say fuck my program for the day and go train with them and do something crazy?
Definitely like Chris Bumstead. He's probably like the bodybuilder I would most like to train with. Not like it'd be cool to lift with like Big Ramy, but I would prefer like Chris Bumstead personally. And then there's like I see like a lot of the powerlifters as like my peers, but then like if I look at like strongmen, those are kind of the guys I'm like, wow, like seeing the shit they're doing, I'm like, damn, that's crazy. I'd love to like lift with like Brian Shaw or
so you'd be down to try some of that stuff. Have you messed around with any of that stuff before?
Yeah, I was actually supposed to do official strongman games in 3 weeks.
Wow.
But I actually pulled out of that because so originally when I signed up for that, I thought my next meet after the showdown was going to be the Kern, and I was like, okay, that'll give me enough time to kind of stay on cycle until strongman games, and like kind of focus on strongman, and then come off and come back out and like switch gears back to powerlifting.
Yeah.
But because the hybrid showdown popped up, I decided to drop out of that one.
I'm really curious, man, because when you've talked about your training through this conversation, it seems that a majority of it has been very strength based. Like when you were younger, you'd still strength based, although you did work with more volume of like more of a volume focus. It makes me wonder, like, for you to gain muscle, do you think bodybuilding training would be something that'd be beneficial for you if you like did a few training cycles and you just focused on training volume? I feel like you just blow the fuck up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like even if I start doing like just adding like an extra back movement, I can just like visibly see after like almost like a week where I'm like, oh, like my back is looking a lot better. It's weird. Like maybe it's just kind of placebo effect kind of thing. Like, oh, maybe I am. But like if I do like abs for like a week, like I feel like the next week my abs just like look significantly better.
That's the thing. I don't feel like it's placebo though, because it's like you don't really do that often. So if you do, it's like you just like
Yeah, like if I do that though, like I start getting more burned out from the main lifts.
Gotcha.
So like I guess I kind of just I do accessories as I feel like it, I guess. I don't know.
What are you doing food wise, and has there been a really like targeted focus on that, or are you a little more laid back with that?
I'm kind of in between. So I guess so I work with Renaissance periodization. I follow probably like 70% of it, where it's like I focus on like the timing of like protein, and then pretty intuitively eat like fats and carbs. But I perform really well with like a high carb diet.
So you're on a high fat, high carb diet.
Pretty lower fat.
Write that down.
Yeah.
So when you say intuitively, what does that look like for you? Like, can you feel before like a training session, I need a bit more carbs today before I train or something like that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, or I'll just feel like, oh, I'm like feeling kind of down, like maybe just eat a little bit more. And, like my body, like as long as like I check my body weight most days, and
And you're not rigidly tracking things.
correct.
Okay.
I kind of like, not rigidly, but like half-ass track the protein. I'm like, as long as I'm getting like 180, like between like 170 and 185 grams of protein, and then the carbs and fat kind of come naturally.
So if you want your shoulders to be bigger, for example, you just train them one time per month and they get bigger. If you want to get leaner, you maybe just don't eat pizza for a day. I'm just trying to make sure I have all this down and getting the program down from some of the other stuff you said in the gym. And then you only deadlift super heavy every week, and you only squat heavy every week, but you also only bench press 3 times a week.
Yes.
Am I figuring some of this out? Do you deadlift more than once a week and squat more than once a week? Because I didn't write that down yet.
I do usually squat twice a week. So I have like
I knew I had this summer's program wrong.
So I guess like the way my training is kind of focused is like I have, so Saturdays, a heavy single on squat and bench, and then some bench accessories. And then Monday will be a heavy deadlift with like back day. And then Tuesday I'll do like a rep bench day. Wednesday will be a rep squat day. I usually like to do that as pause squats. And then Wednesday or Thursday, I'll either do another bench day where it's kind of more like speed work. Like I like doing bands or chains on those days. It just kind of, I don't know if it's
trying to move real fast, like real explosive, or is there a little bit more focus on just like form?
More so form and control, but also like moving fast. Like that day, if I give it to like a client, I'm kind of like, hey, like if you're newer, like try out different different things. Like maybe it might not be bands for them, but like, you know, maybe try a different grip, try a different foot placement. See, like I'm a big fan of doing what feels good, and that's usually, or like doing what feels strong, and sticking with that. And it's kind of like experiment on that day.
What you're talking about is just practice.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you know, when you do, when somebody does speed work and when somebody does rep work, they have a similar impact. They have a similar effect. Where if someone's doing, you know, if you wrote out for a client and you said, hey, I'd like to see you do, 3 sets of 15 on these squats. Well, it's different than when they're doing 3 sets of 3, because when they're doing 3 sets of 3, the weight is heavy enough to where they can't really think about the movement. They can't really play with foot placement. They can't really, as they're doing the range of motion, they can't really think about what they're doing because the weight is too heavy. When you do 3 sets of 15, however, especially from a powerlifting perspective, you can take that time to say, oh, I wonder how it feels if my feet are turned out a little bit more. Oh, I wonder if I get this grip. Oh, I saw this person do this. I can practice. And you can actually think during the lift, oh, I wonder if I arch up more, how that feels while I'm squatting. And then same thing comes with the bench press and you mentioning the speed work. And I think what people get lost in is like they think some of this dynamic effort work that Louis Simmons came up with does not work great for raw lifters. And they're very wrong on that because, first of all, doing like 8 sets or 10 sets and going with kind of short rest intervals, it gives you a really wonderful opportunity to practice your first rep, which is one of the most important things in lifting. So if you're doing a speed deadlift or doing speed squats or speed bench, you have an opportunity to practice. And you can also kind of think about like, hey, this is 500 pounds. Like, Don't think that it's just 185 or whatever's on the bar. You're also, teaching yourself how to accelerate through the weight. But as you put it, you're trying different grips and trying different things. What's the strongest? What's the weakest? Oh, wow, I'm weak when I'm really out wide. I wonder if I brought some flies into my training, did some cable crossovers, that would help protect the shoulder more so I can build a bigger bench. Or maybe I would use a cambered bar to go down lower, or use dumbbells to go down lower. I mean, then you start really actually thinking about your training, and it's not just you kind of going on autopilot. So it gives you awesome opportunity to get stronger.
Yeah, and I think I really recommend, like, once you, like, if you're doing like maybe like a 7 or like 4 sets of 8, and you try different ones, and like maybe like a wider grip felt better on one of them, you're like, oh, I like that. I think I usually recommend, like, okay, like for your next heavy day, do that for your warm up and see how it goes. Because maybe it won't feel better at the heavier weights, but just like, I've been doing this for 18 years now. Like, I found out what works for my body, but it didn't happen overnight.
I'm curious because we asked Andre Milanichov this. Like, you see a lot of lifters that are excited about powerlifting, and let's say they've never lifted before, but they just want to hop right into powerlifting and just lifting heavy, right? What would your suggestion be for a lifter in their first 3 to 5 years of training? What should they concentrate on? Should they just concentrate on getting stronger and going to powerlifting, or what would give them a good base?
That's tough to say, because like, personally, I've always just really enjoyed being strong. So like, sticking with powerlifting's been fun. I think it's as long as you're just having fun in the gym. I mean, I don't think there's anything you need to focus on.
Yeah.
But just find some training program that you enjoy. Like, if you like doing higher rep stuff, like, do a program that's more higher reps. And then you can't get too focused on the actual, like have fun hitting PRs, but don't rely on those for your enjoyment of the training.
Yeah, if you only like something, you'll never be great at it. You have to actually like love it. If you like something, you have an opportunity to be pretty good at it, but it's going to take that you're passionate enough about it to where when you go and do a lift and you fuck up your back and it messes you up for 3-4 weeks. I mean, I remember when this gym was pretty competitive, and we'd always kind of say, like, well, we'll see what happens after the guy's here for about 3 months, because first month they're really pumped. Second month, it starts to get a little harder. And by the time that third month rolls around, they got to really make decisions on whether they want their elbows to be flared up all the time, or if they want to take extra time to figure out ways of taking care of those things. Because powerlifting is a sport that doesn't end when you leave the gym. There's so much more to it when it comes to your food and your sleep, trying to figure out ways of recovering and things like that. And so it takes a lot of resilience. And once you see somebody get hurt, you get an opportunity to see, like, oh, okay, I think that motherfucker is probably going to stick around for a while, because he did get hurt and he was sucking it up for a few weeks, but now he's back to it and he's rebuilding. Because it sucks, man. It sucks when you're working so hard. You are doing everything. You're doing everything in your power that you think is right and you think is correct. I heard, just a sidetrack just a little bit, I heard a story the other day about this woman who said that she did an Easter egg hunt when she was a kid. And she was really pumped because she knew that this one Easter egg had $5 in it. And she got super excited. She found the one that she knew there was going to be $5 in it, this like golden egg. Her dad would, put the Easter eggs around wherever. She gets all pumped up. She opens up and a turd pops out. a little thing of like dog poop.
Oh.
And her dad's
Actual dog poop?
Yeah, actual dog poop. And her dad like sat her down and explained why he put it in there. He said, sometimes no matter how hard you work or how much you think something's the right thing to do or the right way, sometimes shit just happens.
What a wild time for a
I
life lesson.
I know, right?
Like that.
And so
how old was she?
She's like 5 or 7 or something like that.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, holy shit.
I think I would never trust my dad.
Yeah, I know. You're like, that motherfucker, yeah. But anyway, kind of the point being is that, like, you are trying to do things that you think are in your best interest. You are trying to move towards things that you think are a great idea, and bam, you get hurt. So how do you deal with injuries? How do you kind of come back from them?
I think so I haven't had like any like major ones in my lifting career. It's usually something where I can still, like, maybe I won't be able to squat heavy, but I can still at least like bench or deadlift. So I just kind of put my focus more on the other lifts I can do. I personally, I've never had to deal with where I have to take like a whole month off of like training. So
That's great.
Yeah.
So, okay, I don't know. Am I thinking torn quads aren't a major injury? Like, is that not a major injury?
I mean, I took like 2.5 weeks off like completely of squatting,
Okay.
and now I'm like, I've kind of like the first one lift back, I hit like worked up to like 385, and then just I've been doing squats twice a week and just kind of increasing it slowly each week. So like last Saturday I hit 540 for
Okay.
a triple.
And it felt pretty good.
It felt like I felt strong,
Mhm.
but I also just didn't feel confident where I was like, ooh, I feel like it could like re-injure
Yeah.
if I like went an inch deeper kind of thing.
Gotcha.
You touched upon something I think makes a lot of sense here. I think that a lot of it's just his mindset. You know, what somebody else might consider to be an injury that is temporarily life altering. You're like, oh, it's just it's just a little hitch in my giddy up for a little while, and I'll get better soon.
Yeah, I think a lot of lifters, at least like newer guys, kind of think too short term. Where like Andy and I've talked on our podcast about how like I had kind of like a 5-year plan of like what I wanted to hit. Like I wasn't just thinking like next meet. I was like, all right, I want to hit this at this meet. That'll set me up to hit like this is the next one, this is the next one, and then I can hit the like 1,000 kilo. It wasn't like I need to hit the 1,000 kilo at this next meet. And so then when I get like an injury like that, it's kind of like, okay, like it might just like set me back a little bit for the short term, but I can just like adjust the long term a little bit to still hit that end goal.
That's a really big deal though. Like that's awesome because most lifters do. They're only thinking about what they want to hit in the gym next week and what they want to hit at their next meet. And then after that, they get the post-meet blues. They're like, I don't have any new goals set up. But you set up a long-term plan, and that's why you're able to consistently just chip away at these little goals.
Yeah.
Because it's not something you have to do right now.
Yeah. Now I hit that long-term goal, and I don't know where I'm going from now. Nah, I'm joking. I just don't have like other than the 800, 600, 900, I don't have like a specific number in mind. Maybe, I think Ed Cohen's best 220 was like 24:36, something like that. I think that would be like a really fun number to like kind of shoot for. But, that's a ways away. So,
okay. That's a lot of lifting.
Yeah.
Right. What are some exercises that you utilize because people are sometimes obsessed with particular lifts. So let's talk about bench and say like, what are some particular other movements that you might utilize to help increase your bench press?
So like I talked about earlier, like most of my lifts are just doing the main lifts. But especially for bench, when I do the 3 days a week, I kind of focus on like, each day I kind of focus on like a different like main mover. So like chest, shoulders, and triceps. And I kind of I'll hit the main lift, and then the next lift after will be something that kind of like is still similar to bench. It's usually like a barbell movement, but it kind of focuses more on that, like chest or whatever. So it's usually like Larson press, which I do for like chest,
which is a bench press, like a bodybuilder bench press where your feet are up.
Yep.
Or your feet are just straight out in front of you. You could just have your feet straight out, or you could put your feet on a box and just let your legs totally relax. You could even kind of practice this on like a floor press or something like that. Just anything to get your legs, out of the lift, I guess.
Yep. And then like an overhead press on my shoulder day, and then like close grip or bands or chains or something on the tricep day.
Cool. How about squat and deadlift since we're on this?
So I don't do too much variations on deadlifts. Sometimes I'll hit the top single and then I'll drop down and do like a couple sets of pause deadlift. But what I found works best for my deadlift is training back. Like actually like bent over row or pendlay rows really has a big carryover for me. Like,
really?
Yeah, like if I hit like pendlays row, if I like skip it for like 3 weeks, my deadlift will feel trash. But if I like skip it and then like I hit it the next week, I'll be like, okay, my deadlift, it feels a lot more locked in.
Can you describe that lift a bit?
Yeah, it's a bent over, or pendulum row is just a bent over row basically, but you drop the bar all the way down to the ground.
Let the weight rest a bit and then,
Yeah.
and then give another pull to it. Do
Yep.
you move your body much, or do you try to stay strict where your body stays like, but you're not using a lot of body English?
I try and keep it stiff. I try not to jerk it as much, but like sometimes you just want to push it a little bit heavier. So like I think a little bit of movement is good, but you don't want to be
flailing all over the
yeah,
place.
you don't want to be doing like basically 3/4 of a deadlift.
When did you start doing the pen lay? And like what do you, I guess when you do work the pen lay, what numbers do you look for that correlate over to like, ooh, okay, so my deadlift is probably could probably move this amount of weight?
I don't like focus too much on the weight of my accessories ever. Like
Mhm.
I don't know what my best set of 8 on pendulum rows is.
Okay.
But I usually just kind of pick like round numbers. Like I train with kilo plates. I'll usually just do like if I'm doing like sets of 12, I mean start with like 275, so that's like 2 reds. And then if like that set moved well, maybe I'll throw like 5 kilos on each side or something like that. But yeah, I don't specifically like try and focus on the weight, as long as I'm like around like RP like 7 to RP 9.
But the position is what you care about with that movement, like maintaining good position.
That's part of maintaining good movement, and then just getting the work in.
Okay.
Really, like as long as I get the sets and the reps in, the weight doesn't matter to it. Like maybe like when I'm feeling stronger, I'll hit heavier, but
yeah,
I don't track that, so I don't know.
There's a lot of variation in what you're saying. Like it seems like you're just saying bench, squat, deadlift, and you have a couple of movements that you like to do, but there's still a lot of nuances and variation within everything that you're talking about. Bench pressing 3 times a week, and then having, a specific focus on shoulders one day, triceps another day, pecs another day. But I think that people don't always understand how much variation there can be in just one movement, even if it's just the one movement with not an actual variation to the exercise, because you can lift the weight slower, you can lift the weight faster, you can do some pause reps, and then you can also utilize like different barbells. So you could do a fat bar bench press, you could do a safety squat bar squat. Instead of a regular deadlift, maybe you are using a trap bar. Like there's endless amounts of variation that you can use that is still the same exercise or similar flavor to it. You can shorten the range of motion, you can lengthen the range of motion. It seems like you don't choose to veer too far off of the actual movement itself for the most part. But you did mention for squats that you use a safety squat bar, and that occasionally you'll also do some pause squats, right?
Yeah, I do actually more pause squats than I do safety squat bar. I've had like some issues with like hip injury or like glute on safety squat bar, so I don't push that one that heavy, but I do like doing like beltless pause squats on my secondary squat day. I usually like work up to I do a lot of like ascending sets. So like I'll start at like maybe like 500, and then if that goes well, I'll go up like 20 kilos or something like that, and then I'll hit like a top set. And that like the top set is kind of what I track as long as I'm like increasing that each week.
Why beltless?
I just kind of like it.
Yeah.
I don't like I don't have like a good reason like, oh, you need to do beltless to like build your abs. But so I'm very upright, so I don't get a whole lot out of the belt. But
so you think you could pretty much, I'm assuming you could squat pretty close to your belted max beltless.
Yeah, I think I've hit honestly, I think what did I hit this past train cycle? I hit something like upper like 682 for like a pause triple beltless, or maybe like 700. I don't something around there. And it was kind of funny because like I'll post like a video like that where I'll like personally think like, wow, that was like one of the most impressive sets I've ever hit, and then like won't get as many likes as like like upper 7 squats. I'm like, God damn it. Like mentally that like almost like fucks with you, is like being like trying to be like both like lifter and like social media side of things.
Okay. It's because you mentioned this earlier in the podcast. It was really interesting. You're saying like, okay, if there's a goal number you had in mind and you're not going to get there, at least you're going to get something that you can post. And it's cool that you're mentioning this, because like that stuff is somewhat important for you as a lifter, and having people see kind of what you're doing. It's interesting that, like, okay, this won't get as many likes, but this will. You know what I mean? So what kind of, I guess, what kind of importance do you put into the social media aspect of things? Because some people are like, I don't give a fuck, but at the end of the day, it is fairly important in this day and age.
It's one of the only ways to get recognition too in the sport that we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that actually like really benefits me too, because like people like seeing the top single, and that's what I'm good at. That works out well for my training, and I recover well from it. So I do like put more focus on those single days, I think, and then like the rep days or the accessories, I kind of half-ass it, because maybe not like half-ass, three-quarter ass it.
Three-quarter ass.
Do you cook at all? Because like the food thing is really important, and we did touch upon it a bit. But do you cook your own food, or do you just kind of end up at like Chipotle? Like, what's it look like for you?
So I usually like to. I'm starting a new meal prep plan for my like breakfast. Is kind of like I eat like a bigger breakfast, and then I snack a lot. Andy will make fun of what my diet, because me and his girlfriend, we both like eat like a child. Like we'll eat like Uncrustables and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so Uncrustables, what else?
I love
fruit
Uncrustables.
fruit
So
snacks.
Fruit snacks, Welch's?
Usually Annie's.
I don't know what that is.
Those are the like organic ones.
Oh, healthy with it.
Yeah. So like I would say like my best meals are definitely breakfast, and then pre-workout meal is usually like oatmeal, a protein shake, and a banana, and that's like pretty consistent. And like if it's a heavier day, if I want to go like heavier that day, maybe I'll like do an extra packet of oatmeal or something like that.
Extra banana, extra Anadrol.
Yeah.
What did you eat when you were a kid?
Mm,
I mean, my mom cooked like dinner most nights.
Okay.
Cereal for breakfast and school lunch.
Okay, I'm kind of curious about this one. Over the years, do you find that, because yeah, your nutrition is structured, but do you find that now, since you've been doing certain things for such a long time, you can kind of literally pay less attention to it? You kind of just know what to do, and you can wing certain things
Yeah.
because you know how you respond to stuff. Were you more regimented before, or no?
I think it was kind of like stepwise getting to that point where I was probably like less regiment earlier in my lifting career, because like I was younger, I can get away with that, and I was still progressing through other means of just like getting stronger.
Yeah.
I think like as I've gotten like past like 25, I've kind of had to get like each time I get like a little bit better, I think, but it's such small steps, I don't like notice that I'm doing it better.
Okay.
So like in the past year, I've started watching one of your recent guests, Andrew Huberman. So like sleep has been like a really big thing that I've improved on this past year, and I think that's kind of like one little thing that I can do to like help increase my performance.
Any particular things, or just like thinking about getting to bed on time? Like anything that you've noticed that really helped?
Yeah, getting to bed on time. Honestly, just like kind of listening to it, it's like making me more conscious of my sleep. And like I like his like getting sunlight in the morning, trying to limit screen time at night, and then just going to bed at consistent times.
What did you notice with that when you started? Because we talk about sleep a lot, but for you, what did like that look like for you before? Because I mean, obviously you were getting some sleep, but you weren't paying as much attention to it. And then what are the things that you adjusted?
So I think actually like, so I got laid off from my work back in May, and I started a new job. And my previous one, I was working from home, so I kind of like I had a really bad habit, and it was kind of like I can like wake up and just roll out of bed and kind of casually start working at whatever time I wanted. So I would like play video games late at night, and then like wake up at random time, like just naturally. And now I actually have kind of a set schedule, and I think that's actually like helped me being like, okay, this is what time I have to wake up. So like if I want to get 8 hours of sleep, like this is what time I have to go to bed.
Okay. I definitely want to ask about what games you play, but I want to we got to let you know right now, since we're talking about sleep. We work with a company called 8 Sleep, right? They have a mattress topper that can cool your bed, and there's been a lot of research to show that the cooler temperature your mattress is, the faster sleep onset you're gonna have. So the cool thing is that 8 Sleep, they have a mattress topper that you don't need to buy a mattress, but you can put it on top of your mattress, or you can get a mattress and the topper and get amazing sleep with that temperature controlled pad.
And we can get it for you for $150 off. Right now, if you guys head over to 8sleep.com/powerproject, that's 8 spelled out. So EIGHT. I had to look at it because I can't spell for shit. 8sleep.com/powerproject. Once you guys go there, you guys will see the banner up at the top. It'll say $150 off automatically off of your Pod Pro or your Pod Pro Plus mattress. So no code needed. Just head down to the links in the YouTube description as well as the podcast show notes. But yeah, dude, that stuff's amazing because it actually will change like your temperature throughout the night. Cool. So like mine, when I first get into bed, it's like freezing cold. Well, it's very, very cold. My wife says it's freezing cold. And then by the time I wake up, it's warm, so like it's really easy to get out of bed.
Nice.
And like the amount of like wake up periods throughout the night has gone way down, so like you're getting better sleep. It's like something you should definitely check out.
Cool.
Especially during the trend sweats.
Oh man,
Never done trends, so I don't know.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Aw.
Will you ever do trend?
I don't think so. I think like you touched on with that Coach Trevor guy, where you guys talked about how like everyone thinks like, oh, trend, like, oh, it's such a like so hardcore, like you need it for strength, and like it's actually kind of funny because did you guys ever sponsor Pete Rubish? I know he did.
Yeah,
yeah.
For a long
I know
time.
he did the backyard meet of the century.
Absolutely.
He was one of my first training partners, so I kind of like saw like that. Like I think that's actually like a big thing that's changed since like when I first started lifting versus now. Is like I think a lot of people are kind of. I think back then it was kind of like just take whatever is in your fridge. Because literally I asked him going into Raw Union, like, hey, like, what do you want? He's like, oh, I don't know. I just injected everything else I had in my fridge. I was just like, holy shit, man. That's wild. Like now obviously he's gotten like, he's much smarter about it.
Yeah. People share more information. And with the more information out there, it does attract maybe more people to get into it, which, is not necessarily always great. Because it might be people that haven't really trained much yet. They haven't put any time into it, or they are starting very young. So there are some dangers to it, but it is nice to hear people say, hey, like these ones actually are pretty mild. I never had, I personally never had anything happen to me with these, but these over here, probably not a great idea. And then, future people that are thinking about going that route, they can make a better decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, just there's more information out there, and now people are a little bit smarter about what they take.
Yeah, somebody actually in the live chat had brought up Pete Rubish. I have no idea, so hopefully they weren't honeydicking me, but that he's coming off of everything and then trying to compete.
I think he's been off of everything.
Yeah, it's been off of everything the last time I checked. I don't know if he's still. I think he was like trying for a kid, maybe. I might be wrong there. I watched a few of his videos where he talked about like coming off.
He came off everything, and he's been off everything for a few months now. And his like lifting numbers, they went like way down, and then now they're climbing back up. Yeah, I think it's great. You're not going to see too many people that do that are on shit for long periods of time, who say, hey, I'm just going to leave it in the rearview mirror and not even take like TRT, because you are changing so much of your identity. I lost 100 pounds. I don't have the same strength. So I changed my identity somewhat, and then I got a mustache and then dressed as a superhero, but changed my identity a bit, but it's still not the same as like just, going completely clean from it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'd ever go on trend at this point. I think
whatever you're doing is working.
I perform well with just doing like, I think Anadrol works a lot better for me personally.
Anadrol in video games.
Yeah.
I do want to mention this though, and kind of ask this too, because I've heard you talk about genetics before, and like you mentioned like genetics they play a big part. But in, as we've been talking, man, I don't want people to hear that and be like, oh, John's just genetically gifted, because you've been working on a farm since 3. You've been lifting weights for strength since 10. You've done wrestling and football in high school, and you've been super consistent with that shit like the whole time. So
And you've been paying attention to what's going on around you because you've mentioned listening to like Andrew Huberman and pulling in information from other people. So
yeah, like there is a lot, like a lot of people don't start lifting till they're 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, they don't even really do much physical things in their youth. But you were growing up being a physical, just working with shit your whole life.
Yeah.
That plays a big role.
Yeah, I think like when I say like genetics, I also mean like my early environment.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I think just like kind of getting the mindset of what I need to do to like get to the level. And obviously like the actual genetics do play a huge role. Like, you know, there's many people that could never bench like, or even squat like 500 pounds. Like most people probably won't be able to squat 500 pounds in their life. They could train all their life and they can't get to that level. But I think like I have a very good combination of kind of all the things you just listed, like genetics and environment, and also just like intelligence for like training. I think a lot of people kind of train stupid, and that ends up killing their career.
Yeah, I mean, you went through a lot of years of just probably, you know, hey, this feels pretty good. Like I'm going to leave that in there. And you probably went through many years of like crossing shit off the list. Like this exercise, like, I don't know, maybe one time you tried heavy good mornings and you're like, I don't think that does shit. I'm going to stick with deadlifts. And then maybe for a long period of time, you tried deficit deadlifts. You're like, I don't do anything. I think that's stupid. Maybe you tried fat bar deadlifts and you're like, that's dumb. You know, you find these things out, you know, and you find stuff that start to eliminate a lot of stuff and you start to kind of carve out and cut out something that is kind of uniquely your own. That sounds insanely efficient. So like while I'm teasing you about like just training every day and going as heavy as possible, it's something that is working great for you. I know that you even coach other folks, and when you do, they get great results as well. So it's obvious that you have a great understanding of not only how your body's working in the gym, but just how the gym works in general for everybody. When you do work with some people that are maybe less gifted, does the programming look different? Or are you trying to like start people out with benching 3 times a week or doing maybe as much frequency as you're doing?
So I would say like probably like 70% of my clients are on a very similar program where I think like kind of the benching like 3 times a week, squatting twice a week, and deadlifting 1 to 2 times kind of works for most people. And then like just working with them and like finding out how their body feels day to day, how, and like cycle this train cycle to train cycle, and then you can kind of go either direction. I think like that's kind of a good like middle ground to start at, and then just kind of going from there, see if like they respond better to accessories or just the main lifts.
You know, and one thing that I noticed when you're talking about a lot of this too, I think one thing that people do is they'll try to add in a variable or add in a movement, right? And maybe they don't stick with it for long enough. Maybe they don't see the results they want quick enough, so they're like, okay, they dump this. How do you look at that? Because it seems that you don't just throw everything at it and see what sticks. Like you try something for a while.
Yeah, I think like so I did a lot of that, kind of like throwing different variables in early in my powerlifting career. Like I started on like 5-3-1. And then I'd do that for like 12 weeks. Then I'd switch to like the cube method, which was really big when I started. And I just kind of started taking like the parts that I felt worked well from each program, and then I built my own from there. And I think you got to kind of find that balance of like trying it long enough, but not like sticking to it if you're like, all right, I like this isn't working. And I think that's something that it's hard to like explain. It's just kind of like intuitive, I feel like.
I think not enough people follow their gut. And what I always admire about people that are like yourself is that you repeatedly do that. You know, you're like, hey, this I'm gonna work on doing this. You do it. It feels right. Feels good. I mean, you put it really simply with the bench press. You're like, I like to feel what's strong and then use that more often. and it's like how many times we get people to say, or they ask, what stance should I use in the deadlift? I don't know, but how about a good idea would be whatever one's stronger for you? Probably lean towards that one more often. Like there's probably mechanical reasons and a bunch of reasons, mobility reasons on why a sumo deadlift feels better than a conventional deadlift, or vice versa for you in particular. So, we hear so much like that you need to work on your weakness, and you can do that. And those are good things to examine and look into, but it's kind of it's a real bummer trying to do those things all the time, because you're working on shit that you're not good at all. And I think you probably need a combination of the two to even have like enough motivation to get through each and every day. So if you find something that feels strong, whether it's you're really good at reading, or you're really good at math and you can be a chemist, or you're really good at deadlifting conventional versus sumo, then, stick with it for a while, and maybe you still incorporate things that hit your weakness, so that you can become more well-rounded, but don't be afraid to lean into where you're strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like going back to like how I pick like accessories, if I'm feeling like, oh, my chest isn't like feeling as strong on this bench, like maybe I'll hit a little bit more chest to bring that up, but I know, but like, oh, like my biceps aren't feeling strong, like that's not going to help my bench really, so I'm not going to really focus on that.
With that, like kind of with what Mark was mentioning there, because when you see yourself squat, you're a very upright squatter, which you don't see that often in powerlifting.
Yeah.
Also, you've chosen to stick with conventional. There's a lot of people like they choose to do sumo at some point. You stuck with the real deadlift. Now, what have you ever tried sumo in the past and you just didn't like it? What made you stick with conventional? And also your squat form. How did you realize that this is the way that I'm going to continue squatting well? Did you experiment with other stuff?
Yeah. So like you said, like trying things out long enough, I probably didn't do that with low bar and sumo. Well, I can say like I can't sumo. Like I just, if I go wide, it just something with my hips just does not feel right.
Okay.
And then low bar, it's kind of the same thing. It just doesn't feel right, and I kind of like went with my gut of this feels strong. Like I've been doing, and I didn't like get into powerlifting until I'd been lifting for 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, this is what's worked for me. This is what I've been training for 10 years. If I change it up now, it might be like, do I have to train another 10 years to get back to like where I'm at, kind of thing, or feel as confident in this form? I've made like small tweaks, like I've moved the bar down a little bit, but I don't think going low bar at this point would be that beneficial to me.
Gotcha.
So sometimes when someone's not strong, I think this is important to mention, when somebody's not really strong, like they're not advanced, they haven't been lifting for a long time, this is where the assistance exercises can come in. But this is where I think people get mixed up and they get things wrong. A main movement, a barbell movement, can be an assistance movement. So for example, if you were to program and you said, hey, I want to see what's your best triple, and the person benches 155 for a triple. So hopefully they warmed up with the bar, they used 95 pounds, they probably proceeded to go to 135, and then so it's not a lot of work, right? And then so how do you get that individual to get a lot of work? Well, you do it with the assistance exercises. Some people choose to have their athletes go over to the dumbbells and do 3 sets of incline dumbbell bench, and then followed by flat bench, and followed by flies and all these other things. But other coaches, especially I would say more modern powerlifting coaches, understand using things that are specific towards the competition having a ton of merit. And that's stuff I've utilized over the years, and I just called it a secondary barbell movement. But it was just the first movement done with a different prescription and maybe done in a slightly different way. So this person that benched 155 for 3, they're now going to proceed to reduce the weight to maybe 115 pounds. And I might say, let me see what 4 sets of 6 looks like, benching with a closer grip. It sounds to me like that's a lot of the stuff that you're doing with people. But you do have to find out, when you're a newer lifter, you do have to figure out a way how you're going to be able to replace the volume that you can't get from your buddy that you're lifting with, who is repeatedly kicking your ass in the gym. And the way that you're going to do it is with those secondary movements, the assistance exercises, because you just don't quite have the same strength yet. That's how you're going to be able to make up that distance and make up that ground over time.
Mm-hmm, for sure. I think that's kind of like going back to like how my training's progressed over the years. Is like early on, I put a lot more like I'd put focus on the main lift, but then I would put more merit compared to now into like that secondary movement. But overall, my training has been focused a lot on like that main movement and a very similar, usually barbell movement. Like I'll do like dumbbell after that secondary movement, but probably like 90% of my focus and like energy is put into those two.
Do you have a favorite thing to do? You did mention video games. A favorite thing to do aside from all this gymming that you're doing?
So I'm pretty like homebody. I like to just kind of relax, like hang out with my dog, and like I watch a lot of movies and like video games, and I don't know, that's about it.
Which games, bro?
Netflix and shit like that.
Yeah.
What are we playing?
Mostly RuneScape.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How long, bro? Wait, is there a new version of RuneScape out, or is it still old school RuneScape?
So there's two versions. There's like the new version where they like kept updating, and then like they made an update that a lot of people really hated.
Yeah.
So they used like a save file from 2007 to make old school RuneScape. So it has like old school RuneScape has like the same graphics basically
Yeah.
as like back when you probably played back in like early 2000s.
I was like in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like they still update it, and that one actually is like I think more popular than the new RuneScape.
Are you like ranked in any of these games?
I'm almost maxed account. I think like once I max it, I'll probably quit because I put way too. It's a fun game where I can like kind of mindlessly play while I do other work.
How
Like-
many hours have you put into
What?
RuneScape? Because RuneScape,
Hold on,
like,
is-
if you've been
is
playing
this-
RuneScape for that long,
Is this
you have had a
RuneScape?
lot of hours in it.
I've never even heard of that. Is this what that is?
So that's the
That's
new
the
version.
new shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
so this one's lame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look up old school. Or just type in old school RuneScape.
Kids, this is how you get strong, right? here.
Yeah.
You want to get
But-
fucking massively strong. This is how you do it.
I joked on another podcast because like
Is it any of
old school
these?
RuneScape, it's like point and click game. So you do like the same thing over and
type in
over.
old school RuneScape.
And I think it's kind of a good metaphor for like powerlifting because you just have to find the enjoyment in doing the same thing over and over, and then you get that little dopamine from like hitting a PR.
Yeah, when it's
or
slightly different every once in a while.
this is still.
That's still new.
No,
This is
so
still new.
this is actually they just came out with a plugin to like make it
Mm.
better graphics, but this is the
So
old
this
school.
is still old school.
This is old school, yeah. It's old school HD.
Bruh, this says a lot. This continues to say a lot about you, man.
I know.
You're not out here playing some new shit. You're still playing old school RuneScape, trying to max out your account. Now, you dodged the question. How many hours do you think you have in that account?
Oh man, I've been
That's a hard.
That's hard. I can look it up. I don't know. I don't know if I want to know the answer to that.
My guess, if just say yes or no. Above 10,000.
No. I don't
No?
Think, I don't think about 10. I think like probably around 1,000.
1,000 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
What about movies? You end up kind of like binge watching some stuff, or are you watching just kind of single one-off movies?
It varies. Like I watch a lot of like Amazon Prime movies. I'll just
Mm.
kind of like go and see like just go through the titles and see what I like. But then if I start like a new series on like Netflix, I will finish that series. Like
You're determined.
yes. That's like I get like super hyper focused on things. Like
Mhm.
my ex-girlfriend had a puzzle and she started it one night and I was kind of making fun of her for like I was like, oh, puzzle, like what are you, 6?
You got trapped.
And like literally
trapped.
it was
into
when I was like staying up late at like 10:30 or something or 11. I like walked by the kitchen table and like found a piece and I was like, ooh, put that in, like, and I was like, oh, that was enjoyable. Found another piece, and then I was up till like 3 a.m. and the next day of work, I got like 3/4 of the way done, and the next day of work, all I could think I was like, I can't wait to get home and finish this puzzle.
Did you finish it? And that was the
I
reason
did.
for the breakup?
It
Just
was
like, you
not.
son of a bitch.
It was not the reason for the break, but I did finish it. I waited for her to get home to do the last like quarter of it.
Right. Yeah, you can't do that to somebody.
Yeah.
Can't screw them over.
She had another puzzle she could do. So.
You have any aspirations to do any like bodybuilding? You did mention some strongman.
No, I don't like dieting.
No,
I don't think I could mentally deal with losing strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can handle it for like coming off cycle,
right?
Because I know like I'm still trained for strength. Like I know as long as I'm like stronger, like 16 weeks out from meet, like from this like meet versus like the previous one, I'm still stronger than I was. But to lose like hundreds of pounds on my bench would
You're
just
like nope.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to ask, do you remember any of your numbers before you, I guess we'll say, changed federations? Because that's literally what everybody goes to, is just like, oh, well, that's why he's so strong, because he does this and that. But, I mean, you said you got second before you as a natty lifter amongst enhanced lifters. So I was curious if you remember some of your biggest lifts.
Yeah. So in the gym, my best squat was, I want to say like just under 7. So like I started my first SARM cycle was Austerine, and like after like 8 weeks I hit like a 700-pound squat, which was like about a 10-pound PR. I like every time I went on like SARMs, I feel like I got like 10 pounds on each lift. And my best natural bench in the gym was 474, and my best natural deadlift I want to say it's like 750.
All right.
Yeah, those are some pretty big numbers, and who knows how far you could have progressed, pushed it. Do you feel like you slowed down at that time, or you don't really know?
I think I was like slowing down a little bit, but I think it was just kind of one of those like sometimes training I feel like just comes in like those like waves, and every so often you get like you slow down, and I think that's what a lot of people fall off the sport from, is like they slow down and then they get like discouraged, and then they're like, oh, fuck this sport, I'm gonna try bodybuilding or something. And so I was like kind of coming to like a slowdown, but I think like there was like other things I could add in to keep increasing, but then I just decided to do supplements as
What's your mindset on these big lifts? Do you feel like you need to prove yourself to anybody? Is it just you proving yourself to yourself? Are you is there anything that happened in your life where you're like, I want to show people like what's up type of deal, or is it just you just absolutely just enjoying lifting and loving the process of powerlifting?
There's nothing that like happened that makes me want to like prove it. I just always wanted to be, I guess, the best. So it's kind of proving, it is kind of like to myself and like to other people. It's like whenever I see someone like, I get compared to like Taylor Atwood a lot because like he's like natural goat, and like everyone's like, oh, like, like they, like Atwood's doing like these crazy numbers, but he's natural too, and he's like 2 weight classes below. So like when I see that, it kind of fires me up a little bit. I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna hit like something big to like kind of shut him up a little bit. But
maybe just to like maybe again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe one of your goals is to kind of like just have your numbers be so good that they speak for themselves and they stand up to anything anybody else has ever done.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think I don't know if that'll ever happen. Like going back to like what we said earlier, like with the LeBron versus Michael Jordan kind of conversations, like no matter what Michael or LeBron does, like there will always be that conversation, even like Kobe Bryant in that conversation of who the GOAT is. So I think it's impossible to ever like shut everyone up with your numbers, but I just want to do as much as I can to like kind of etch my name in like the history of powerlifting.
Yeah, to beat Ed Cohn, you'll just have to do 1,000 across the board on each lift.
Yeah. And even still, there'll be some people like, oh,
yeah, he was the best.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, people grow up with these people, people grew up with Jordan, people grew up with some of these legendary athletes that they've had from the past. So There's no way anyone else can compare to Muhammad Ali because that person remembers what it was like when they saw him and how inspired they were by them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe because of someone like yourself coming onto the scene and older folks seeing some of the younger lifters, they might not think it's as inspiring because they're not in the same spot in their life. So they're like, this guy's not as good as that guy. LeBron ain't the same as Jordan. I think most people can kind of admit that like LeBron James is just on another level in terms of his abilities and capabilities. I do think that in order to be considered great in the reference that we're kind of referring here to today, it's not only important to prove yourself, but it's also important to continue to not only prove yourself, but to be able to improve yourself when you're already really fucking good and maybe even already great, and then to do it for a long period of time. You start to see somebody, you're like, oh my God, that guy has won worlds in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 17 years ago, and he's still here. Like, I don't know what that guy is made out of. I don't know how he's doing it, but he's still competing. He's still here. So I think, not that you have to do things for that long. You already have broken a lot of all-time world records, and your numbers already do speak for themselves, but it will help the longer that you can hang around and the longer that you can compete at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
That's when people will really start that they'll just have no choice.
Yeah.
They'll have to recognize, and they'll have to see that you're one of the best.
Yeah. But to like add on to not just like proving it to myself and to other people, I think it's just motivation just comes from just enjoying the sport in the end. Like I like going to the gym every day and train with friends. So if you don't have that, you're not gonna do well in whatever sport you play or activity.
And that can't be understated because that's going to be the thing that you're going to be doing most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Competing's 1 or 2 days. Every competition is just 1 or 2 days, but then the training is every single week.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't enjoy that,
like you have to have enjoyment in hitting the PRs. Like I think everyone would have enjoyment from hitting the PRs, but you have to have the enjoyment of hitting like the 3 sets of 8.
Yeah.
Have you done any big weight cuts before?
Oh yeah.
So before we go any further, I don't advise anyone to do a weight cut, that especially a newer lifter. So if you're a newer lifter, I know it's easy for people to be like, oh, I just miss a meal or two and I'm going to just go for the weight that you lift on the platform. Don't worry about any sort of weight cut. But having said that, and none of this is an actual recommendation. This is just what John has done, his own experience he's going to share with you. How have you cut weight, and what is the biggest and most successful weight cut you've done? And have you run into any like real dangers with it?
So I don't know if I've ever like cut to the point where I'm like, oh, I should probably like go to the hospital, but probably like getting close to where it was like, this is like, it's not safe what I'm doing. Typically I start like water loading. I don't really drink water. Like my friends give me crap for it because I'll drink like pre-workout
Monsters and shit.
Monsters that are pre-workout. And so like 2 weeks out I'll start drinking like a gallon a day. And then so if weigh-ins are like Friday, the Sunday before I'll go up to like 1.5. Monday will be 1.5, and then Tuesday will be 2 gallons, Wednesday will be 2 gallons, and then I'll do like a half gallon on Thursday.
This method, by the way, helps your body to release a diuretic hormone that helps you to, in the end, get rid of more liquid than what you put in. So it might seem kind of confusing, but you'll be able to pull an additional weight off of your body by basically excreting it out because you'll be producing this hormone. Do you drink like distilled water, or is it just like whatever kind of water?
So I start so early in the week. It's I also do the same thing with like sodium. I up my sodium levels. So basically what you're doing is there's the 2 hormones. There's I think one of them's vasopressin, and I don't remember the name of the other one, but like one handles how much sodium your body excretes and how much fluids you excrete, and you're trying to like raise those levels, and basically then your body, like once you cut sodium and the fluids, your body still has those levels high, and you basically flush everything out. And so that's like kind of, so the first layer is like your fluids, just doing a water load. Second layer would be like sodium loading. And then the third layer is cutting back on carbs because the glycogen from the carbs retains water. Once you start cutting that down, you'll start flushing more water out. And basically that'll like usually get me down about 8 pounds or so. And then I'll sauna the night before. Sauna, suck on like Jolly Ranchers and spit into a cup for the last whatever weight I need to do.
Magnesium citrate.
I've tried that. I don't like it. I actually do. I don't know the name of it. I got it from so I was coached by Joey Flex, and it's like some like herbal tea that kind of cleans out your system. It's
You're
like a
coached by Joey Flex.
yes.
That's interesting. Because Joey Flex, I think, first got into powerlifting from one of the seminars that I did at Barbell Brigade, and I did a seminar with you at Barbell Brigade.
Yep.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You ever try like those super dieters tea or anything like that? Anything to make you blow out any extra weight because it makes you just like shit like crazy?
So that like kind of like is like a colon cleanse. I'll do that like Wednesday night. But it's I've done the magnesium citrate and it just kind of upsets my stomach.
Oh, it just rips you right apart.
Yeah.
When did you start kind of just doing like, because you were working, I don't know how long you were working with Joey. He works with a lot of lifters.
Mhm.
But when did you start like doing your own programming for yourself?
So I kind of started as doing my own programming, and I would like just do like programs I found online, like 5-through-1, like Cube method. I think that was kind of like what most people did at that time, is like they would do those programs by like big names, and then like after that, like online coaching kind of started taking off because like Instagram became a big thing. And so I worked with Jason Manikoff and Joey, and I would always do my own thing during the off season, but I would have them like peak me for a meet. And then so once I left the IPF, because of like the rule, and Joey was on the world team coaching staff, so he was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can like be at a meet with you, or I can't be seen being at a meet with you at least.
IPF, bro.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, okay, like if you can't be there meet day, like I'll just do my own thing. And I kind of like now my training is kind of it takes inspiration from both of them, and then also like what I did before, and just kind of all like figured out what works for me.
Nice.
Cool. And so JC in the live chat had asked, how are you balancing a full-time job with, being a full-time powerlifter?
Honestly, like it doesn't take. It's not that hard to be a lifter. It's just like as long as like, since I enjoy lifting, it is my hobby in a sense. So it's just like, how do you balance any other hobby that you do?
That you're one of the best of the world at.
Yeah, but I feel like I don't do anything like different than.
Feel it.
Yeah.
Do you get mad?
Do I get mad?
You seem like just super calm. Like all these questions that we're asking you, there's almost like a lot of deflection. Like you don't allow any of the things that we're thrown at you to have any like weight or merit.
No, I don't get like, I'll get mad at like little things, but I don't like have like roid rage, kind of like, oh, like.
Actually, it's interesting.
You seem like you don't have a lot of stress, I guess.
Yeah.
Like before lifts, sometimes you see lifters like they're like, they get themselves amped up. Is that the type of lifter you are? Are you more calm before you get a big lift? How do you process that?
It's kind of like like calm but focus. Like if you've ever seen the movie like X-Men First Class, you know when like Charles Xavier's explaining to Magneto like how to like turn the thing, he's like, I think like the key to like power is being like somewhere in between like rage and like tranquility. I kind of like try and find that spot where I'm like, I'm clear, like I'm hyped, but I'm like clear minded, and like the only thing that exists is me in that bar.
Yeah, you can't channel that kind of energy unless you are focused and unless you are kind of calm. Because otherwise, it's going to kind of, people get real emotional, and we've talked about it before on the show that usually when you're getting like super hyped, it's because you know that there's a great likelihood that the lift is going to get the better of you.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just trying to like, I guess, talk yourself into like that you're going to be able to somehow have this like Herculean effort, and you're going to be able to make the lift, and the crowd's going to go crazy and
For
love,
sure,
love you
exactly.
forever.
That's a cool thing about that too, is like you can replicate that. Like that's something that you can consistently go to, because you see a lot of lifters, they'll scream, they'll bang, and trying to pull up all that energy before a lift consistently,
Mhm.
that shit will stress you out.
Yeah. Actually, like, going back to when we talked about like missed lifts, usually if I'm gonna miss a lift, it's actually like, kind of like in the middle of a train cycle. I rarely miss the last heavy one, and even then, I actually, in the gym, my last heavy is usually gonna be heavier than what my planned third attempt is gonna be. So like in the meet, because I know like I'm gonna like lose, or I count
It's
for
also very rare.
Yeah.
Most high level people, they'll say, oh, you know, I took, 5-10% less in the gym and hit more weight on the platform. And you're sometimes hitting some big weights in the gym.
Yeah, because I know like there's probably gonna be some strength loss from like the water cut or the weight cut and everything, and I want to go into my third attempt being like very confident in the lift.
Since we were talking about water cuts, meet day rehydration, how do you handle that?
So usually I'll get an IV, and it was actually kind of funny with the last meet because I didn't have that big of a cut. Like my current cut was way bigger, but when I was getting the IV, I actually passed out. But like, and everyone was like freaking out. They're like, "Oh my God, John had like such a big cut." But like, no, like I'll sometimes do that. Like I don't know why. It's just my body reacts to it. But I usually try and, like, if I lose like 16 pounds in water, I try and drink at least like it's about 8 pounds a gallon. So I usually try and drink at least 2 gallons. And then big focus is on sodium and carb, those two things that you cut out. Avoid fats for the most part. And then I try and get like a 4 grams of carbs to 1 gram of protein ratio, because that kind of helps open up the pathways for your absorption.
It's a gnarly feeling when that weight starts to come back on you and you
Oh,
start,
yeah.
you
It's like-
start filling out. You're like, holy fuck. It's hard to sleep because you're like, I feel like I need to use all this right now.
See, yeah, like sometimes it doesn't hit me until like second squat. Like I'll feel like, and also like I'll try and go for like 700 grams of carbs like during that day. It's just like as much carbs as I can get, but that's kind of like I go for like a nice round number.
Yeah.
But yeah, like meet day, like sometimes like during squats, like my legs will feel like almost like jello. But then like once I start kind of creeping up, and it seems like doing that work like almost like flushes like the glycogen back into my muscles. And then it's like, okay, now I feel strong and like feel full.
Wow.
Powerlifting meets are really interesting. Like, you don't really hear a whole lot of anything until after people are done with their squats. Like everyone's like pretty like focused. A lot of people are nervous. It smells like Bengay and old fat sweaty guys pretty much.
On testing me, you can smell the oil in the air.
Yeah, and chalk and baby powder. It's got this weird particular smell to it. You'll get some head nods, people give you a little like what's up thing, couple fist bumps here and there, but like people are pretty like anxious. But once squats are over, everyone starts yapping away like, oh my God, I did this in my prep.
That's true, because I mean bench is kind of boring too, so you're kind of like, oh,
you're just laying down
need to
for
pass
it.
the time.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I guess kind of last thing is, do you do any sort of like cardio sort of training of any kind? Do you
Not really.
mess around with any?
The light jogging?
In the off season, I'll like do a little bit of light jogging, and then I'll just walk my dog, and that's usually kind of the extent of it.
Plenty of it. Andrew, take us on out of here, buddy.
Before we get out,
Just kidding.
Before we get out, Mark, I don't know if I can hop your ass on the table, but
Oh,
it's not the Crocs. It's more so these ripstop joggers.
here we go.
All
I'm
right,
pretty
so
impressed by
this is
the
what I've
Crocs
done.
there, though.
Huh?
I'm pretty impressed by the Crocs.
Like
though.
Bruh.
a little bit more
I fucking love
towards
Crocs.
Nsima.
But
Big
towards
clock eye.
Nsima, I can kind of see it.
check out Mark's shorts. They're from a company called Viore. They're the best gym clothes that you're ever going to be able to have. I'm being fucking serious. You're almost not going to want to
No.
wear them in the gym because they look so nice.
Mhm.
Like I could work out in these. I actually
Could.
hike in these too.
But then you
but-
don't work out.
But yeah, I don't work out. But anyway, guys, they're so comfortable. You put me on them.
Yeah, they're great. And the fart pouch is amazing. The charcoal technology that they have.
I
and
didn't get those.
You guys didn't get those pants? Those are the newer
What the
pants.
fuck?
I think they said they're not coming out for a little while.
You
How
always
does-
get the
still-
stuff first.
How does Mark always get all the cool
yeah, they're
shit
still
first?
working on it as a filter type of thing.
Oh my
But anyway,
gosh.
all the clothes they have available on their website are amazing. They're going to make you look good. They're going to make you feel good during your training sessions. They fit right, and you got to go check it out.
Yeah, I wore this shirt for the podcast, but I was a little bit early, so I ended up walking into the gym, hit a couple of sets, and then I'm still wearing it, and it feels amazing. If you guys want to check it out, head over to VUORI, so it's viori.com/powerproject.
To be safe, you want to do VioreClothing.com/powerproject because sometimes it's weird, but
So yeah,
easy
either one.
to either one.
Either way, links will be down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. But when you guys go there, you'll receive 20% off your first order. I'm wearing the Strato Tech tee. That's my favorite t-shirt, and it's amazing. It feels incredible. Again, links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. And again, thank you everybody for checking out today's episode. We had a lot of people in the chat room, so
Ooh.
we really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. And please follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram and Twitter's at I am Andrew Z, at the Andrew Z on TikTok. And Nsima, where you be?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mr. Haack.
Oh, I am Bilbo_Swaggins
Yeah,
181.
boy.
Do you got to explain that real quick? Like, why Bilbo Swaggins?
Oh, I just thought it was funny.
It is funny.
Yeah. I was like drinking one night and someone asked me like, "Oh, what's your street name?" Thinking like, "Oh, rap name." Like, "Oh, Bilbo Swaggins," and they're like, "No, like, what street do you live on?"
That
I'm
is
getting-
a great rap name, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bilbo Swaggins.
yeah, and then I was like, "That's a funny name. I'm gonna change my Instagram to that," and then kept it ever since. Everyone asked me like, "Oh, when are you gonna make it Bilbo Swaggins 198?" And I actually have it, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to change it because you have to like wait like 2 weeks before it's available. Like, I can like drop that name from the other account,
Mhm.
but it's like it's safe for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, I'm gonna forget it,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna lose both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Bilbo_Swaggins 181.
Yes.
Okay, because there's a couple other ones out there now.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Fuckers.
I know. Copycats.
And you do some programming for people?
Yes. So
And then people just DM you or email you?
either DM or email. Email is jhack30@gmail.
There you go. Thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it. Awesome having you here at Super Training.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was nervous because you've had like such like informative guests, and I'm like, oh, I just lift things.
Yeah. No, you're really
Bro.
fucking amazing at it.
Yeah,
And, you're inspiring and motivating to all of us. So thank you for fucking smashing those big weights all the time. It's
Appreciate it.
amazing to watch.
I do it for you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that means something different now that I get when I watch those videos.
Just cut
Yeah.
out that bite and put
Mhm.
that as a video. And
And then bam.
And then, but he also watched Sarmageddon, so you're
That's
welcome.
True. I did. You set me on the path of the untested.
Where-
I
liver.
love it.
Where
Yeah.
were your hands when you were watching Sarmageddon? That's
Mm.
kind of the key factor there.
Ooh.
Mhm.
Well, I
And that's all the time. I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.